Are we for everybody? No, nobody is. We try to be adaptable. We try to serve our clients and do and deliver on what they want. But I have to ask a series of questions to understand what it is they really want, because I don't think they know what they want. They come in, they're like, oh, I need a logo, I need a website, I need SEO, whatever the hell that is, and I need it fast because my competitors are like eating my lunch. I'm like, okay,
yeah.
So let me ask a few clarifying questions. And then usually after that, I come to realize, hey, listen, your logo and your branding is fine. Let's evolve it. Let's modernize it a little bit, you know? Let's look at your SEO. What are your competitors doing by way of search engine optimization? Why are they coming up and why aren't you coming up?
Great experiences build great leaders. Great leaders build great teams. This is Building Great Sales Teams.
All right, guys, welcome back to Building Great Sales Teams. This is going to be our first guest episode in over a month, so I'm excited about it. I want to introduce to you guys today Howie Nestel, the founder of Sharkmatic Advertising, a cool ad agency serious about big results. Howie has survived 35 years of entrepreneurship as an owner or partner in more than 24 businesses. He likes to call himself the world's poorest philanthropist and founder of a collective drive for the homeless, with details at www.gotchacovered.org. He's an expert in marketing, sales, and fundraising, as well as a public speaker. Howie, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you, Doug. Great to see you on and off a ship. Always fun to see you. We were on a cruise together, and it was great that we just happened to run into each other. That was awesome.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. The moment we met again, I should say. So I think the first time that I saw you in person and maybe just shook your hand and gave a quick intro was Mark Ebbinger's Let's Talk Business podcast mixer, right? And so I had seen you on his podcast show as well as a co-host, and so we were on the shit. Me and my wife, we decided to have a drink before we called it a night, and we asked to sit next to you and your group without knowing who you were, right? So we're sitting down. I'm like sitting next to your dad and complimenting his Jordans and like how well he was dressed and everything. And I look over at you and I'm like, I know this guy from somewhere. So we start a conversation, and eventually it comes to me. I'm like, you're a co-host on Mark's show, right? And so kind of crazy on a ship of, I think it was like 3,500 people or something like that we ran into each other.
It also speaks to, right, in sales, is just connect with people that you don't know. I think you guys were looking for a place to sit. We had a couple of extra chairs. I'm like, yeah, pull them up. And I think you were all even were interested in moving them out a little bit. And I said, no, just join the group. Come on, participate.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I love how that happens.
What I found interesting in any time that just in general you find someone like this that has that ability to just spark up a conversation like that, they tend to be what I like to call an attractor, right? They're the person in the group of people that has a few people circled around them, and they know at least 10, 15, 20% of the room, right? And that was the first thing I noticed about you was like, all right, so you and I talked for maybe like an hour that night about a lot of different stuff across entrepreneurship, across having kids. And then at the end of the night, you're like, hey, we should get together again later on the ship, where most people are like, all right, that was happenstance. That was cool. That was nice. But then wouldn't put a next steps on the relationship after that. And it just seemed like this was your standard operating procedure. This is how you operated. Is that right?
Well, yes and no. It's standard operating procedure if I feel like there's some synergy there. You know, you're a sales coach, sales guru. I love sales. It's really what's driven the 24, 25 businesses that I've owned. Sales, even though I'm a marketer by trade, I know that sales really is more important than marketing in many ways. Marketing is indispensable, but you can have the best marketing in the world. You can be, Taco Bell and do the talking chihuahua and all that stuff, but it not move the needle and not make sales. And, eventually Taco Bell dropped that campaign because while it was memorable and it was fun and it won all kinds of awards, it did not translate into more sales. Now, anytime I meet somebody who loves sales like you do, I definitely want to tell, because those people are far and few between. But I will tell you, probably more often than not, for me, it's happenstance, and it's, hey, thank you, man, that was so great. Let's connect at some point. Hopefully we'll see each other again. I usually don't have a follow-up. Unless, of course, it's the director of a major oil and gas company and they're looking for an ad agency, then of course I'm going to follow up. In your case, I really thoroughly enjoyed the conversation around sales, around coaching. I'm thinking about doing an event in San Antonio that involves those things. So I thought, you know what? Here's a guy that I bet you I can collaborate with in some way, shape, or form. Even if I don't do his marketing, but maybe there's clients of mine that need sales coaching, because I have some decent sized clients that they think everything's going just fine, And I think that they might be leaving money on the table because they're not developing their sales teams.
Mm-hmm. Let's speak to that a little bit, because B2B sales are a lot different than B2C. Most of the time in B2C, you're in an environment that says, hey, I'm interested in your product. And it's up to the salesperson to sell them the basic, better package or the best package, right? And that's sales in B2C. Now in B2B, the mistake a lot of salespeople make is going for that sale right away. Whereas I feel like you're going to go for the relationship first, which in our case it's a collaboration of, hey, we service the same kind of clients. I'm looking for more clients in San Antonio. You're looking for clients that need sales or that need marketing in San Antonio. So there's a referral partnership, I guess you could say, that's going to happen there long term. You and I already know it. We're aligned, you know what I mean? And it makes sense. And so let's speak to how so often, and you probably see this happen all the time, especially being a figure in the community, where they pitch right away. Does that happen to you often?
It happens all the time to me, Doug. And I'll tell you that with guys like you, companies like yours, I look at that as a strategic alliance. People like to call it partnerships. Oh, let's be partners. I think a partnership is a legal entity that people have to sign to have to do business together. So I know that people use the term partnership loosely. I rather use the term a strategic alliance. There's something that you can give and gain from a relationship with me and my company, and there's something that I can give and gain from a relationship with your company. That's an alliance. It's not a legal obligation. We're not signing anything. We're not becoming partners. But to your point, people pitch me all the time, and they don't only pitch me on their service. They once they hear what I do and the influence that I've had in 30 years in business and know 8,700 people on a first name basis and have had 1,500 clients with my ad agency, and they maybe want to get into marketing or whatever it is, they ask me within 3 minutes of meeting with them, meeting them, if I would be their mentor. Hey, can you take me under your wing? Can you introduce me to people? Or I've had financial advisors that say, well, I'd love to help you with your investments. I'm thinking like, man, you don't know anything about me. Well, even if you don't want to invest with me, if if I can get in front of your clients, why would I put you in front of my clients? Guy, I don't even know you. We just met. We're having a drink. I'm in line, to get some food,
Yeah.
Give me a minute. But and I think people don't know. They don't know what they don't know. And so they don't know that there's a proper etiquette. They've not been trained. They've been told by corporate or whoever their boss is, hey, go out there. You got to land $300,000 worth of business this quarter, to make bonus. And if you don't, you don't meet bonus for 2 quarters, then you're out. It's like, then they're nervous and they don't know what to do. And who in their right mind would want to go get trained and waste 2 or 3 weeks of training to then be really good at it for the rest of their careers when they could just go out and start selling day one and start going to networking mixers and join the chamber and do all this other stuff and pass a bunch of cards out, until reality hits them in the face. And then they realize, hey, I got to get some training or change industries, right? But yeah, that's the wrong approach, is to try to sell people right away. I think most amateurs will realize in a short order of time that that's not the best way to get business. Even if you do land a couple of deals, it's not sustainable.
Well, and those deals you land are going to probably not be the best quality deals. They're not going to have the long-term contracts or the high ticket prices or anything like that, because that comes from trust.
Doug, you'll get lucky sometimes. You're talking to somebody and they're like, oh my God, I just fired my financial advisor. I need one right now. But again, far and few between. But you're right, that the quality of those is not generally what you want. And part of being in business for so long really has taught me that it's not even really how much money you bring in, it's what kind of money you bring in. Like, what kind of client are you bringing in? And is there a synergy between your clients and your staff? And bigger picture, is there a synergy between your clients and other clients? And can you create a community around those? And is there some benefit for everybody to be part, of the Doug Mitchell system, because you're leveraging what you're learning from one, applying it to others, then they're sharing back some data that's valuable that you go back and take to the original clients. And all of that becomes an ecosystem and a community that is much more beneficial than just hiring some consultant, buying a pre-packaged deal, and then having them regurgitate it. There's value. There's some value in that, but I don't see, that being the kind of high level value of bringing in somebody who's creating an ecosystem. And that's really what we like to do with our marketing. Are we for everybody? No, nobody is. We try to be adaptable. We try to serve our clients and do and deliver on what they want. But I have to ask a series of questions to understand what it is they really want, because I don't think they know what they want. They come in, they're like, oh, I need a logo, I need a website, I need SEO, whatever the hell that is, and I need it fast because my competitors are like eating my lunch. I'm like, okay, so let me ask a few clarifying questions. And then usually after that, I come to realize, hey, listen, your logo and your branding is fine. Let's evolve it. Let's modernize it a little bit, Let's look at your SEO. What are your competitors doing by way of search engine optimization? Why are they coming up and why aren't you coming up? Oh, wow, your website is on one of these proprietary platforms that doesn't optimize well, like a website builder that you did yourself. Well, maybe we need to start looking at taking it over to WordPress. Maybe there we have some better controls and access to how we name the files and the pictures, the meta tags, all that stuff. And now all of a sudden we see, a clearer picture versus us being order takers and just doing what the client wants. Some people in my industry, they don't grow their business because they're doing everything the client wants. And then sometimes the client's wrong. They don't know what they want. They're not experts in my field. So they come asking for a bunch of things and then they buy the wrong thing. How many times does that happen to, you and I? You go to a store, you go to Home Depot, you don't want to ask for any advice because you're a man and you're wearing a cap backwards and you know exactly what you need, and you go buy 3 things and then you get home and you're like, holy, how do I use this thing? And why doesn't it drill the hole I want it to do? And why is it tearing up the wood because it's not the right bit? You see what I'm saying?
Oh, I make best friends with the Home Depot people. I'm like, I need your help immediately because it is not my forte at all. But I'm glad that the backwards hat exudes confidence, and maybe I look like I know what I'm doing.
You do look like you know what you're doing.
All right, brother. I'm kind of curious because you kind of touched on a few things here, right? And the biggest takeaway I feel like in the beginning of what you were talking about was, if you're acting with the client's best interest at heart, and not necessarily trying to oversell them or throw them on a high ticket deal, you're really acting with their best interest at heart, you may end up opening up a lot of opportunities for them to plug into your ecosystem and end up with a much better deal in the long run, right? And so the second part of it, and you were kind of headed in this direction, is about agencies in general, right? I feel like agencies right now, because there's so much automation and AI and white labeling in the marketplace, that they try to be everything to everyone, right? And you talked about it a little bit, you know, doing what the client wants versus asking them real questions that you get to apply your expertise and tell them what they need, right? And so I feel like these are just some of the ways that you set yourself apart from what's happening in the marketplace right now. I also noticed when I was at your offices and you and I met for a little bit that most of your clients are coming from the local market. And so when you look at local market clients versus, you know, maybe clients over in Michigan or Washington or Florida or something like that, right? Is there an advantage to building your agency locally versus online?
So there's a lot to unpack there, but I would say you think it's to go back to your first point, you think that it would be an automatic that any vendor is going to have their client's best interest at heart, and that you're not going to oversell them, and you're only going to give them what they think they want or what you deem they really need to make them more successful. That's how you build relationships in business that are long-standing. How you build quick one-hit wonders is by either selling them what they want or overcharging them for things they don't need. And that is a result of not understanding what your client really needs to succeed. And then you're an order taker and you're trying to process as many orders as you can. Great recipe for your own business going out of business, because when you build a bad reputation, and back to what you're saying with AI and everything digital and all that, there are really no secrets anymore. Everything's out there in public. Your reviews, what people are saying, what AI is saying about you. Go Google yourself and see what go find what AI is saying about you. Yes, it's going to pull some stuff from your website and all that, but it's also going to pull your awards, and it's also going to pull any any legal action that's been brought against you and stuff like that. So and you're not going to build back. You don't have enough lifetime to build back a reputation in a city you do business in if you've gotten into 4 or 5 conflicts with clients and they've sued you because you didn't provide the service you said you were going to provide. So anyway, moving forward, I used to work with only national clients, and I thought that was the ticket, right? Big companies, they're spending OPM, other people's money, they're these private equity Wall Street firms or whatever. And that is pretty lucrative. I had a great ad agency in the early days with a handful of national and international clients. The downside, and I know you'll relate to this a little bit because you tell me that you do some traveling. I used to travel 200 plus days a year for business. So I was gone all the time. And I did not want to be that dad that was always gone. When I was single, I loved it, man. I was in a different city almost every night or every other night, and great restaurants. Of course, I put on a ton of weight too, because we're spending other people's money.
I did that too.
And going to steakhouses and drinking wine and all that stuff. And you get to see a lot. I went to the Olympics. I went to World Cup games. I traveled to Europe, Central and South America. I loved it. It's for me, it was not sustainable. I love doing my nonprofit work. I like being local. I like acting globally, and in the sense that I want to make an impact to a lot of people. But I really realized that for me, the best thing I can do was really maybe think globally, but act locally. I can make a bigger impact on fewer people. And so, sometimes people say, like, I want to change the world. I want to change the way business is done. I want to whatever. Well, why don't you start with your neighborhood? Why don't you clean up your street? Why don't you clean up your zip code? Why don't you get involved with some nonprofits around your community? And because I was doing that and I was doing so much nonprofit work in San Antonio, I got to meet a lot of super cool entrepreneurs that had the same giving heart that I had for local nonprofits. And so it turned out that those connections turned out to be great clients for me, because they're clients with a social conscience. And so we connected at a level where we love philanthropy, local philanthropy, and making an impact in our community. So why wouldn't somebody who donates to the same charities that I donate to, time, money, voice, whatever it happens to be, why wouldn't they want to hire me for marketing? And they did. And so because they did, then we got to be great friends, and then we made an even bigger impact on local community. So before I knew it, I stopped traveling, and instead of having 5 clients, I needed 500 clients to equate the same kind of revenue that I was doing. But, that required more staff. But, again, that's part of adaptability. And anybody who's ever been in entrepreneurship for more than 5 years, and I've been in it for more than 30 years, knows that whatever your superpower is, trade it in for adaptability. Because if you're not adaptable, you're not going to have a good career. If you're rigid, you care about things happening the way you set them out to happen, and you have very specific goals, and you're going to measure them against that specific behavior. And if it doesn't, the outcome is not exactly what you expected, you're not going to be happy with that, and you're going to keep pushing. You're going to have a miserable business. You might make money, but you're not going to have work-life balance. You're not going to feel good about yourself. You're always going to be disappointed. So I traded in. My superpower was procrastination. I used to put things off all the time, so not much of a superpower. So I had to pay the upgrade charge to become adaptable, but it was well worth it. Now I'm adaptable. I'm not going to say I'm a monk, like where I let everything go, but I'm pretty adaptable.
Yeah.
If it didn't work out this way, it worked out this way. If I didn't get this client, at least I got this client. If we didn't get this project done this way, at least we got it done this way. And all's well that ends well.
I love it. I love the transition too, because it seemed like while that was fun and you went through that stage and everything of, traveling abroad and traveling to your clients and doing the bigger deals, right? You knew that you wanted to transition to something that better fit your lifestyle, especially once you got into the philanthropy. And so I think that's something that like we all have to go through, where we realize, hey, this isn't it. And now we need to architect and change things. I recently went through that. I've been in business 15 years now. And after 13 years of my sales work, I transitioned to consulting, but I also did exactly, what you did. I'm in it right now, right? I only have 2 local clients out of my 20 plus clients, but it's getting there, right? I'm at 10%. Hopefully by the end of the year, I'll be at like 30 or 40% and so on and so forth. And that's the transition that I'm going through right now. I love your filter though. When you made that transition, a quick filter you put in place, and you didn't even probably intentionally do it, but it was because it was started from passion, right? And your passion was philanthropy. Your passion was doing these things in the community, and naturally you're around a bunch of people doing things in the community. You create this filter for your clients coming in that those are going to be the clients that you have coming in. So now that alignment is what I like to call it. That alignment is at an all-time high now with everything that you're doing. And so let's talk about that a little bit, what you're doing in the community. You've got a golf tournament coming up that you're organizing. I believe, and let me know if I butcher this, but you're the, what was it, Crit?
Oh, great. Yeah, I'm the advisory council chair for the Children's Rehabilitation Institute. It's a long name. It took me, took me a month to memorize it, but Children's Rehabilitation Institute, Teleton, USA. So the acronym is CRIT, C-R-I-T, and your viewers can go to critusa.org and see upcoming events. Great gala, great golf tournament. We have a pro golfer, Abraham Manser, is going to do a clinic for the players that day. It sells out every year. It's at Oak Hills Country Club. Anyway, the big deal here is that it's an organization that serves 350 children who are battling disabilities and their families. It's all free to them. Once in a long while, somebody has a proper insurance where CRIT can bill their insurance, but for the most part, all the money is privately raised, somewhere in the tune of $6.5–7 million a year to serve these families. The institution is in San Antonio. Most people have seen it. It's right next to Morgan's Wonderland and right next to the San Antonio FC soccer
very
field.
cool.
It's a super colorful building, and people say like, "Oh yeah, I was on Wurzbach Parkway and I passed it, and I've seen that building for years, but I don't know what goes on in there." Well, guess what?
Yeah.
I get to lead a behind the scenes tour of what CRIT does once a month. I bring 15, 20, 30 people in, and we do coffee and donuts, sometimes pan dulce, and then we'll do a behind the scenes tour of every aspect of CRIT and how they're taking children whose parents were told they'd never walk and never talk to walking and talking and singing and participating in galas and coming out to the golf tournament. And these kids, some of them graduate, they become teenagers. Some of them go to college. Some of them are working. I ran into one of them working at the Frost Bank Center, at a Spurs game, and it was just so great to see them out in the community, and all because CRIT is doing this rehabilitation that's based on these 4 pillars of care. But that's one of the nonprofits I'm involved with. You mentioned earlier the collection drive. That's Got You Covered, GOTCHA covered.org, or just Google Collection Drive San Antonio and you'll see a little SEO magic. Collection Drive San Antonio will get you to Got You Covered. That's a collection drive I've been doing for 28 years. 100% of the proceeds and everything that's donated, new and gently used clothing, non-perishable food items, and toiletries, all of that go to the people who need it most right here in San Antonio. Men, women, and children at Haven for Hope, women and kids at Battered Women and Children's Shelter, and then all of the non-perishable food items go to the San Antonio Food Bank. In one day, Doug, we collect 65,000 pounds of donations, 3 truckloads full in 6 hours. And then that same day, we go and drop it off at the nonprofits. And you're showing on the website, it shows some of the items that they want. And then there's videos of just some of the stories of the people we've helped. And those stories, get some tissues because some of them will make you cry.
I love it, brother. Making an impact in the community. That's what it's all about. Awesome. So last thing I want to touch on before we move on with our day here is so 35 years in entrepreneurship, right? And one of the things I lean on a lot is my experience, especially with a lot of my clients. Typically, they're in their first 5 years, right? And so I'm able to bring to the table some of that experience of just running any business, for 15 years. And you've been doing it for 35. So a lot of our listeners are in those first 5 years. Maybe they've tapped on their first million in roofing or in AC or in trades. B2B, whatever the case is, right? What would you have them focus on now that they've kind of breached that marker?
Well, I can tell you multiple things to focus on. One is get your marketing ducks in a row. Get your domain name, get your acronym, your vanity URL in place, but also the full company name. Make sure you have the domain name registered. Go get all your social media handles. Actually start separating all your political views from your business pages and just focus on the business at hand. Half of the people don't really care what your political views are, and they certainly don't want to see it on your business profile. So separate that out and start treating it like a successful business that's going to have longevity, that somebody may want to buy in the future, versus all about you. Don't put your family up there, put your business stuff up there. I would say, focus on getting your marketing ducks in a row. Now that you've made some money, invest in some marketing. and start looking like the big boys, the really big boys. You're now let's say you're now in kinder, or you're now in elementary school. Start acting like it.
Yeah.
If you want to make it to middle school and high school and eventually to college and then to graduate school, start acting like a graduate school student. That's one. The other thing I would say, which is not related to marketing, is if things are going pretty well, and if you're tapping on your first $1 million in revenue and things are going well, and you bought a boat and you're going out to Canyon Lake or somewhere that has water in it, then I would say this is the time to really start to manufacture some adversity for yourself. Instead of thinking that you're just going to rest on your laurels and now you're going to enjoy the fruits of your labor, let me tell you something, my friend. You've been in business for 5 years. It's just a matter of time before the next Y2K, tech bubble burst, housing bubble burst, 2008 recession, pandemic hits. It's on its way, okay? I don't know what it is. Doug doesn't know what it is, but it is on its way. Why? Because history tells us it's on its way. Mm-hmm. So if you have no adversity right now at $1 million, start creating some adversity. Start manufacturing some challenges for yourself versus resting on your laurels and spending a bunch of money, because you're going to be tested. And it's coming. 35 years in business, I've been through a lot of stuff. You want to be nimble. You want to be adaptable. You want to have a plan B and a plan C and a plan D. And then after that, you can pray and hope that things go back to the way they used to be. But that in and of itself is not a good plan. So I would say plan for the worst, but expect the best. That is the best advice I can give any entrepreneur that wants to be in business like you have for 15 years or like I have for 35 years.
I love it, brother. It's great advice too, because, you can often look at kind of how you raise your kids as, the things you should be doing in your business as well. And one of the things I told my wife as we're raising our kids, they're 10 to 13 years old now, 3 of them, is that we have to manufacture adversity for them, because they do. Even when my business is doing bad, they have it good, right? Even when my business is doing bad, and that's most kids. I would say a lot of kids today. I'm not gonna say most kids. A lot of kids today, a lot more than say 20 years ago. Because we do, despite everything that we've been through as a people, like we have abundance everywhere, right? And so, the hardest thing is when what's the password for the Netflix? You know what I mean? Figuring that out, right?
Oh yeah.
That's the adversity our kids have, right? And so transitioning, in that 35 years to raising kids like you have, this is a lot of our conversations too, because I want to learn from you. Your kids are about 5 years ahead of mine, 6 years ahead of mine. And so, where do you find kind of the biggest impact it's had with your kids, and especially in relation to your business and having to manufacture this adversity?
That came later, when I came to realize that, especially with my kids, it's very hard when you raise kids with this disease called affluenza, where they're affluent and they know it and they feel it. But it's really, at the end of the day, it's an affliction, it's a disease, because it's not going to serve them well. Fast forward now, I have friends who do very well. I have friends who've had family members who've sold their companies for a lot of money and they're living well. But one of the things that I noticed is that a lot of these people are not really happy, but they're not happy because they're depressed. They're not happy because they don't provide value. And so they somehow feel that they won the genetic lottery or they were lucky, but they can't find their footing. And so they're not contributing to society. They're not involved with nonprofits. They're not making an impact, a meaningful impact with their clients, where their clients are coming. They're not coming to them and saying, hey, Doug, wow, you really changed the trajectory of my company, man. Had we not had the sales training, had we not brought you in, you know, at first I was hesitant, I didn't know, whatever. And then you came in and you revolutionized our business. I don't know where we would be today, Doug, if it wasn't for you. So these people don't have that meaning because they're not making an impact anywhere. They're spending money, they're buying stuff. They're perceived to have a lot of friends, or at least a lot of fans, because they're buying that influence, you know? And so part of what I tell my kids is, you know, look, I don't, first of all, I don't tell them how much I make and what I have, but it's pretty obvious to see based on the things, the things that we do. Right. But I make it pretty clear that that's mine and not theirs. They're beneficiaries from the, you know, Howie Nestel insurance policy. But at some point, if they're not paying their premium, meaning they're not getting the grades, they're not driving the cars the way, you know, they're supposed to, and they're whatever, that guess what? The insurance may not pay if you're not living up to the terms of the agreement.
I love it. I love the way that you're putting it, because I'm definitely going to use that in the future for sure with my kids. I appreciate you sharing that with us, as well as, you know, sharing your experience over the last 35 years, especially in marketing and advertising. If somebody hears this podcast and they're like, hey, I want to reach out to Howie, I want to get involved with Howie, whether it be in the advertising side or the consulting side, is the best place to go HowieNestel.com?
Yeah, I would say go there, you know, Google my name, HOWIENESTEL, and then you'll come, you know, you'll have my website. That's my speaking website. The neat thing about this website is that I don't have to monetize it. I've gotten paid to speak, and I welcome it. If there's a nonprofit involved, I usually donate back the speaking fee. I do a ton of free speaking. That ends up helping my marketing business, but that also, you know, gets me in front of audiences of people who I want to meet, not for business, just to enrich my life, man. I genuinely love people, and I didn't grow up loving people, and I certainly wasn't a people person growing up. I was more of a bit of a loner, and I like to keep to myself. But once I got to know people, especially good people, I got to love people. And because I love people, I get to love what I do for people, both from a philanthropic standpoint and from a business standpoint. And then I build relationships. And then I don't have to hide from anybody. I get on a plane, I get on a ship, I meet people that I've done business with or have heard about me or whatever. And it's generally a positive conversation. Not like, oh, what owes me money, and none of that stuff. So I live a very nice life. And you don't have to have a helicopter landing pad. You don't have to have 6 Lamborghinis and Ferraris and whatever else. You can aspire to have those things, but that in and of itself is not happiness. If you make progress, if you make advancements, if you do well, if you feel good about what you've done, and if more importantly, people recognize it and give you feedback that you've helped them, you've mentored them, you've built relationships that have been mutually beneficial, man, what else do you want? And your revenue exceeds your expenses. That's how I look at success. If my earn rate exceeds my burn rate, I'm doing well. If my burn rate is higher than my earn rate, something's wrong, and at some point the bill comes due and you got to pay it.
Absolutely, brother. Again, I appreciate you joining us. One of the biggest things I keep hearing over and over again is this alignment. You know, once you realize what you love doing, who you love pouring into, and in your case, that you just love people in general, having the conversations like we've had, then you lean into that, and then obviously that's going to benefit your business when you're in alignment. And then everybody around you can feel it, see it.
Yeah. And it's not without problems. I'm not sitting here telling you that I meditate all my problems away and that I only visualize positive things happen. Look, you know, I could have a perfect work-life balance on Monday, Labor Day, we worked some. I went to the office. I took margaritas. You pulled up a picture from our social media post. We worked, but I also had kids at my house and they were swimming and I was cooking for them. And then I went back to the office. I brought back margaritas. Perfect work-life balance, right? Then Tuesday, then this morning, I had a great consulting meeting. Then I get to be on your podcast and I'm having a great time. And then I'm going to look at 37 unread texts. You know, my phone's blowing up. And then all of a sudden it's going to be, hey, what happened to that work-life balance, right? How come this? What happened to this? You see? So it's not without problems, but success is not trying to become problem-free. Success means creating a system to handle problems and move beyond them. And if you could learn from them and you could spin them or you could use them as building blocks to be better, then guess what? You're successful. You're never going to be without problems. So just figure out how to use them, how to leverage them, how to manipulate them, and how to turn them into a win. Not all of them are going to be, but most of them are opportunities. Problems come disguised as, opportunities come disguised as problems. You know, if you have a lot of problems, I'm gonna make the argument that you have a lot of opportunities.
I love it, brother. Guys, if you're in San Antonio and you do not have a connection with Howie yet, you need to go ahead and do that. Again, go to howienestel.com. And he also has all of his nonprofits on there. If you want to get involved with that, just a shoe in. If you want to get into business with Howie, you're probably going to have to go through his nonprofits first and show him you are that person, right? And so a word of advice there. But reach out to my guy here, connect with him, get him on your advertising, or just get him in your ecosphere in business. I appreciate you guys. And as always, let's get building.